I already know that the biggest thing that I want you to focus on is your mentality and the way you look at the game and the way you approach situations and the way you take negative situations or criticism or just whatever it is, because that's the biggest bridge that you're going to have to cross as an individual now, is your mentality and understanding how to evolve that the same way you evolve your skill inside of the game. I hope that makes sense. What is going on, guys? 821 Mayo here, and in today's video we are going to be having ourselves another view of VOD video. Before we actually jump into the VOD itself, I quickly want to mention that 50% of you guys aren't subscribed, so if you guys have not hit that sub button already, I would really appreciate it. I also want to mention that I'm now doing coaching, so if you guys are wanting a one-on-one session like this VOD review here, but that is much more in-depth, or just a coaching session in general, there's a link to the Patreon down below in the description, where you can find all of the info you need and more. And I also want to mention that I have a second channel, so if you guys already enjoy my content, want to see more from me, there's a link to the second channel down below in the description as well. But with all of that being said, let's jump into the VOD. Okay, so if you ever, shoot an ash charge into an ADS like that you weren't expecting, especially with Jaeger's change nowadays, just shoot that second ash charge, because it has a 10-second cooldown, right? I believe, at least from the last time I checked the patch notes, and I don't think they've changed the cooldown of the ADS itself. I could be wrong, but last I checked it was 10 seconds. So you have a 10-second window now to get rid of the Maestro Cam. Because you burned the ADS in the area, right? So take advantage of that. Don't just run away and reload the ash charge. Like, get rid of that intel, and then, then you don't have to worry about that ADS anymore. At least for your ash charges, trying to get rid of the Maestro Cam, just because it's in that cooldown, right? So one thing that I'm kind of noticing about your playstyle right now is, like, you're kind of trying to look like a flashy player, and I see this a lot in VOD reviews where people try to look like they're a good player instead of actually, trying to achieve becoming a good player and, having proper mindset and game sense and whatever it is, right? Like, there's a whole list, and just a large majority of the time, these players that try to look like a good player, they should spend that time actually being a good player and focusing on, improving and stuff like that. But with you, like, I'm not here to sugarcoat things or make you feel good or, put ease at things, and I'm here to help you learn, right? But with you, I can tell that I'm not going to say you're a good player, because I haven't seen that much yet, but you're comfortable is what I'm trying to say here. So far with your aim and mechanics and stuff like that, like, you're comfortable with it, which is completely fine. So I just want to say, like, keep doing what you're doing right now, and just focus on that. Like, or not focus on it, but no need to change it, is what I'm trying to get across here. Like, this goes back to what I said just a moment ago of trying to look like a good player. Like, mechanic wise, you seem comfortable in your play style, so to speak, play style, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. I would say kind of try to tone it down a little bit, because you're like flicking all over the place, trying to somewhat look like a good player, but you're a lot more comfortable than other viewers that I've reviewed and kind of just reviewed in the VODs. But yeah, try to tone down, like, the extra stuff, like, just like the flicking all over the place, the quick, all that stuff. Try to tone that down, but other than that, like, keep doing what you're doing. So if you're gonna hold an angle like this on half wall, where the enemies have a pretty significant amount of cover, where it's gonna be covering most of their body, if you crouch or go prone, you're making the gunfight harder, because the enemy is going to be covering less. They're going to be covering more of their body, because you're at a deficit while they're elevated, right? So now you're fighting at less of a object to hit. So just a little rule of thumb there, and just kind of like overall tip, like, if you are trying to take a gunfight like this, where the enemy has a lot of cover to kind of hide behind and play off of, try to keep that level, that elevation and stuff like that even, so that way they don't have more of an advantage in the gunfight, just because now you have to go, instead of shooting from mid chest up, now you have to fight from, like, lower neck up, or whatever it is, right? Just as an example. So far throughout this VOD review, I've reviewed 2 rounds now. This is the most consistent player that I've reviewed so far. So I think in his VOD form he said he was Diamond or Plat 1. This is the day that I was waiting for in a VOD review where I don't really have to review too much. Not saying that because, you know, I just don't want to review it, but I want to help you guys. So, you know, I'm happy to review these VODs and you know, put them up on my channel or whatever it is and do the work and stuff. But I've been waiting for this day, more or less just because I want to see how I reacted off of it. And I've had a few viewers like this and just clients in my coaching sessions where there wasn't too much that I really had to touch on from a round to round basis. It was much more about the player making sure that they don't create bad habits in the future throughout the evolution of themselves as an individual and as a player, and just making sure that they stay consistent with what they're doing currently. And this is exactly what I'm seeing here today. So when, at least from my experience, whenever you get to a certain point as a player, and I'm not saying that I'm the best player or whatever, but I have a decent amount of hours in the game, not nearly as much as some of the titans in this game, the pro league players, the content creators and all that, but I have a decent amount of hours in the game, and I am getting to a point now, I've been at this point now where it's not so much about mechanics, it's not so much about in the game, it's more or less, there's a turning point with an individual where it's much more about outside of the game and your mentality and the way you look at things and the way you approach things and stuff like that. At a certain point, you just have so many hours in the game where you don't need to focus on these basic things that Gold 1 might have to focus on, or Plat 3 or whatever it is, right? Once you get to a certain point of experience and skill as a player, it's much more about your mentality, because, you know, your mechanics and everything are just so good that you don't really need to worry about them anymore. Like, still work on them and fix minor things, but it's not like, oh, I'm over flicking or whatever it is, right? Like, it's not something severe and massive like a less experienced, lower ranking player would have. And that's what I've experienced just from myself, and also reviewing other VODs and just helping other clients and stuff, is once you get to a certain point as an individual in rank and skill and elo, whatever you want to you know, attach it to, once you get to that certain point, it's much more about your mentality. And this is a pretty young viewer, I can just tell by, you know, how high pitched his voice is. And no offense, I mean, I used to have a high pitched voice, even, you know, I know that might be hard to believe to some of you, but I did, especially when I was like 14, 13, whatever. But yeah, you know, you're a young guy, so your mentality and your state of mind is going to be much less of a concern versus someone who is kind of matured, I guess, so to speak, like me, or, you know, someone who's even older than me. So the biggest thing that I want you to take away from this, and I'm not editing the VOD here, but I already know that the biggest thing that I want you to focus on is your mentality and the way you look at the game and the way you approach situations and the way you take negative situations or criticism or just whatever it is, because that's the biggest bridge that you're going to have to cross as an individual now, is your mentality and understanding how to evolve that the same way you evolved your skill inside of the game. I hope that makes sense. So whenever you're going to throw a Wamai magnet down like this, like you have 3 Wamais in the same area. So you have one like right around there, you have one here, and then you have one there. You know, they have a Zofia, they could have nades, they could have Ash, whatever it is. If you put your Wamais this close together, if one Zofia charge gets caught by one of these Wamais, it's going to kill the other Wamai next to it. Maybe even all 3. Like if this middle Wamai here catches the Zofia impact for some reason, who knows? If it does, it'll probably kill both of these Wamai magnets. I would assume so. Definitely the one above the armory door. I'm not sure about this one on the right, but it's definitely gonna you know, destroy at least one in the proximity of it. So make sure when you're playing Wamai that you understand that you need to learn how to place them properly. That's just like a very small critique. Because a lot of people will put Wamais next to like mute jammers or ADSs or maestro cams or whatever it is, and if a nade gets caught, or if a Zofia charge gets caught, or an Ash charge, that's going to blow up, and that might destroy the utility next to it. So make sure that you're very cautious when you do place them.
Fuck that shit. 20 seconds.
That's rough there. You don't know exactly where they're at. The attackers are rotating around a lot here. So you should be expecting them wherever your teammates aren't, you know, because you can use not necessarily use your teammates as bait intentionally, but they're in those positions, so it gives you info in those positions, right? So pay attention to those areas, and then wherever your teammates are positioned, look around and see where they aren't, and that'll tell you, okay, they might be in this area, because in 4v2, you know, the attackers have been rotating around a lot. Like this IQ was East Main just like 20 seconds ago. So yeah, make sure that you are paying attention to where the possibilities are when where the attackers might come from. You know, even you pre-aiming the armory door should have been happening. Like you see how you just kind of sprint into the angle. You're actively looking for the gunfights, and now this IQ might have diffuser. They might plant. They might win the round. Who knows? I'm assuming that they're not going to win the round just because of low time, and usually it's safe to assume, or they win the round, and they do win the round. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. So if you are in a ready position, and what I mean by ready position is pre-aiming that door, armory door, you will not die to the IQ, at least I hope so. Just because you're in a ready position, right? You're pre-aiming, you're looking at it, instead of you just running across armory and whatever it is, because now that IQ just got 4 kills in the span of 5 seconds, 10 seconds. So you could have prevented that. So that's the first real major mistake that I've seen throughout this entire VOD, is that mistake there. So make sure that, you know, if you're in a power position and in an area of the map where you might be expecting the attackers, make sure that you're in a ready position of, you know, having proper crosshair placement, pre-aiming, looking at the area, not sprinting across the screen of the IQ. Pretty basic stuff there. You got a little antsy, you got a little impatient, and it resulted in you losing that round. See, okay, this is also a situation where you're in a ready position, you're pre-aiming, you're actively, you know, looking at the most common area of threat. But you are seeking the gunfight, you're looking for it, you're getting impatient. So this is kind of what I was talking about earlier when it comes to mentality. This isn't necessarily so much about mentality, but it is definitely, it plays a part into what happened there. So you are allowing yourself to get impatient. You're actively looking for gunfights, you want to take gunfights and whatever it is. You need to learn how to be patient in this game, because there are going to be situations where the entire round is going to be won, like last round, where the IQ kills 4 people in 10 seconds, or there's going to be rounds where you're going to be sitting in sight for 2 minutes and 50 seconds, right? So you need to have the best of both worlds, and understanding that, okay, I'm going to either need to be really reactive here and kill someone who might be in the bomb site in the first 20 seconds of the round, or I'm going to need to have the ability to sit in sight and sit there for 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So you need to have both of those abilities, and you're only having one, which is the ability to react off of fast information. So when it comes to, you know, trying to look for gunfights and stuff like that, you need to understand how valuable your life is. Because even last round, you know, we can look at last round, you were the first person to die to the IQ, and you could have prevented your death and probably prevented the round loss, and then the game would have been over here, would have been a 4-0. Same thing might happen here, where the IQ kills you, and then, you know, she jumps in, she kills 3 other people. Who knows what'll happen, right? It's Siege. Anything can happen in this game. It doesn't matter if there's 1 second, if there's 3 minutes, whatever, you know. In that 1 second, all 3 of your teammates can line up and, you know, 1 bullet, or 3 bullets, sorry, kill all 3 of them. You know, it's a possibility. Is it highly likely? Probably not. But at the end of the day, it's still likely, and you don't want to be on the receiving end of that. Same thing applies here, just in a different light and situation. You are actively seeking for gunfights, and you are, you know, you died because of it, right? So you need to understand how valuable you really are as a teammate and as a player on the team, and how valuable your utility is in your life, and how much of a difference it can have. Again, last round you playing with mine, you dying to the IQ. So keep that in mind. It's really important that you do, because I've seen it, you know, a lot during this VOD, that you are actively just looking for gunfights, trying to kill people, trying to get into gunfights. And yeah, you might have the mechanical skill and aim to back that up, but at the end of the day, there's still always the possibility of the enemy killing you instead of you killing the enemy. And that's what just happened there. I'm going to pause the VOD here, and this is the end of the VOD, because there's 20 seconds left or so. Yeah, there's like 30 seconds left. So this is the end of the VOD. You guys won. Also, the Nomad just died, so you guys defused the bomb, and then, you know, game over. But the last, like, solid portion of the VOD was super laggy and delayed. Pretty much he tried to walk through rotate here. died to a nomad that planted there where the diffuser's at through the wall. There was an air jab, so he tripped the air jab, got sent into the animation, he couldn't fight back, and then the nomad shot him. You know, pay attention to audio cues and stuff like that, and also, you know, you heard them jump into vent window, so again, audio cues. But the biggest thing that I want you to take away from this is understanding how valuable your life is as an individual, as a player, and stop seeking gunfights. Don't allow yourself to peek into the enemy, allow the enemy to peek into you, and play your game. Don't actively seek the gunfights, make the gunfights come to you, and play your power positions, especially as a defender. Super important that you do that. That's one big takeaway from this VOD, because I saw that a lot. Also, your mentality. Again, I know you're a young kid, you're probably 15, 14, somewhere around there, I would have to guess. Your mentality is a huge part of this game, and it will be once you grow up and you start realizing this. So if you kind of want to be a little bit ahead of the curve, so to speak, or is it curve or curve, whatever. If you want to be ahead of the game, you know, pay attention to your mentality and how important it actually is, because it's a huge part of this game. And you being a little bit younger than normal, there's a expectation kind of set for younger people who play the game and just in general to have less thought and focus on their mentality. So if you can apply that to yourself as well, it's going to be a huge benefit for you, especially down the line when you start maturing and aging and you start realizing this more and more. Your mentality, your outlook on the game, your optimism, all of that stuff is really important when it comes to the game, because some of the time this game is 90% mentality, 10% the actual game itself. So really understand how important it actually is. But other than that, I think you're a really solid player, and I'm not here to, you know, make you feel good about yourself. Like, just your confidence, your mechanics, all of that stuff is something that I've been waiting for to not review, because I wanted to focus on much more of the mental aspect of the game. So I hope I could help you out, whoever submitted the VOD, and I'm looking forward to another VOD in the future. But with all of that being said, that does wrap up today's video. So if you guys enjoyed or learned anything new, make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It also helps out with the YouTube algorithm. I also want to mention again before I go that I'm doing coaching, so if you guys are wanting a VOD review session like this in private in a Discord call where you and I get into a call and it goes much more in depth, this video is probably going to be 20 minutes or so. You know, if you want an hour, a solid hour of VOD review session, there's the option to do so on my Patreon, which is linked in the description, as well as a link to my second channel. So if you guys are interested in that, there's also a link below, as well as a link to the Wichita Wolves, which I'm a content creator for, so make sure you guys go show them some support. And I also wanted to leave this at the end of the VOD, so just a little, you know, update. There's 2 VODs left in the forum. Some of them didn't meet the requirements, I think like 3 or 4 of them, so I had to delete them, and then another few just had to be deleted as well, just because, you know, they didn't meet the requirements, or it's just not good enough to review. So if you guys are wanting to submit your VOD, be on the lookout for the next, you know, couple episodes of this series being posted, and then, you know, checking the form and all that. I do announce when the form is open each time in each video when it does open, so make sure you guys are really watching each video and actually paying attention to when I say the form is open, because I'm gonna close it once it reaches 10 submissions, so that way I don't get flooded with, you know, hundreds and hundreds of submissions. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed, hope you learned something new, and I will see you guys in the next video.